nights, former President Donald Trump sitting down with Joe Rogan in a wide-ranging talk, sharing reflections about the campaign season and his time in the Oval Office.
But what I want to get to is, like, what was the experience once you got inside?
The biggest thing was just that first moment of being in this hallowed, it was really a hallowed place to me. It was
surreal.
It was beyond. To me, that was the experience. It was a surreal experience. And then with time, that wears off. With time, it becomes, your place where you stay. And I was doing a lot of, I had two things that I really focused on: governing the country and survival. Because from the moment I won, before I got to office, all of a sudden, they came down. Nobody has ever been treated that way.
In just 24 hours, Rogan's newly posted episode with Trump already catching tens of millions of views. Recently, the sexually charged Call Her Daddy podcast featured Vice President Kamala Harris as the Democrats hone on issues like abortion. Numerous podcast appearances represent a new strategy for the campaigns in the digital era, as the candidates carve out more time for these longer-form conversations in casual settings. Meantime, The Rogan Show, wildly popular with young Americans and men.
We've highlighted you on the show many times when you did this Biden impression where he's walking around, he doesn't know what he's doing. It's funny. It's stand-up. It's funny stuff. You have, like, comedic instincts. Like when you said to Hillary, you'd be in jail. Like, that's great timing. Yeah. But it's like that kind of stuff was unheard of as a politician. Like, no one had done that. And I think...
it's funny. You need at least the attitude of a comedian when you're doing this business. This is a very dangerous business, first of all. It's a very tough business.
Trump also taking questions about lessons learned since first holding political office.
Did you have a moment in time where you realized, like, these are bad choices? Like, some of these people I shouldn't have had in there.
Oh, yeah. I will say that it always comes back to the same answer. The biggest mistake I made was I picked some people. I picked some great people, but you don't think about that. I picked some people that I shouldn't have picked. I picked a few people that I shouldn't have picked. And
neocons?
Yeah, neocons, or bad people, or disloyal people, or
people that were just
people
bad,
that were into the
people got bad advice.
Yeah.
Rogan says his podcast is also in talks with the Harris campaign to arrange an appearance, but the VP's schedule has not yet aligned. Reporting for Newsmax, I'm Alana Austin.
So for more on this, I want to bring in the president and executive editor of the Daily Signal, Rob Bluey. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Katie. Thanks for having me today.
Thanks for being here. Rob, Rogan has the world's largest podcast. I understand his reach almost hard to calculate. And he had called Donald Trump a threat to democracy 2 years ago. But after the first assassination attempt, he says he decided he wanted to have him on his show. Was this a good move by Trump? He talked for about 3 hours and covered quite a few topics.
In fact, Trump was late to the Michigan rally as a result of the long discussion. But I think that the fact that it already is approaching 28 million views on YouTube signifies that there is a significant audience out there that is interested in hearing from Donald Trump and interested in hearing the questions that Joe Rogan asked him. Let's face it, these were topics that probably he would not be asked by traditional media outlets. And I think that's the popularity of both a Joe Rogan and a Donald Trump combined. So yes, Katie, absolutely a good use of his time. And I think the probably a turning point maybe in this approach that candidates are taking to some of these influencers that are out there today.
We live in very unusual times, and the number of topics that came up kind of makes your head spin. One of them, life on Mars, the former president speculating that maybe all the people at NASA who created those rovers and covered that planet, the most studied planet other than planet Earth, just haven't found life yet. He threw that out there. Also at one point saying that maybe he'll get rid of the federal income tax. What do you make of some of these kind of spontaneous, I guess you would call them, moments? I wonder in the background, he's always got somebody with him who's probably trying to keep him on message. I'd love to just get kind of their reaction as some of these things come out. But people tend to like this stuff.
Oh, Katie, so would I. You have to wonder what his staff is thinking sometimes. But this is Donald Trump being candid. Let's face it, this is a Donald Trump that the American people grew to like in 2015 and 2016 because he was not your typical politician. He was somebody who came from a different experience, didn't come up through the political world, and he would just told people like it is. I mean, he called balls and strikes, and if you didn't necessarily fit the Republican orthodoxy on particular issues, that's what you came to expect from Donald Trump. I think we saw less of that probably in 2020 because he was the incumbent president. But I think he feels the freedom now to speak his mind and talk about things in a more candid way.
You know, let's talk about a certain voting bloc that tends to listen to this type of podcast. We're talking about young, white American men who don't have a college education. They are a really large voting bloc, and more of them are turning to the Republican Party now than ever before, at least, you know, according to pollsters and others. What do you make of that, and how important is it for both former President Trump and Vice President Harris to go after that voting bloc aggressively?
Yes, and we've seen both of them make appeals to this group precisely for the reasons you outlined. This is a group that could determine the outcome of the election in so many of those swing states. I mean, if you think about it, these are a group of people who are struggling financially. The economy, in many ways, does not give them the advantages that young men once had in this country. And so I think that the declining manufacturing base, the fact that so many of them are out of work, looking for jobs, just not having those opportunities, it makes it a real opportunity for Donald Trump to appeal to them. And while they may have been Democrats in the past, I think that you've seen him not only attract white young males, but also young Black and Hispanic young men. And that's a deciding factor right now. And that's really hurting Kamala Harris. And I think the appeals that she's making are just falling flat because they have experienced 3.5 years of the policies that she's promoted, and they're not doing well as a result of them.
So we just have 9 days to go until the election. A lot of people have already voted in record numbers, actually. A lot of people turning out, especially in Michigan. What do you think is the best strategy from former President Trump in this home stretch to just motivate some of those people to, as he said at one of his rallies, get off the couch and go vote?
Well, this is a great point you made, Katie, because we know if you just look at, for instance, church-going evangelicals, I mean, there are tens of millions who might not show up to vote. And that's what the history tells us. That's what the data shows even for this year. And so I think that not only is Trump trying to appeal to some of those people who are on the fence, those undecided voters, as few of them as there might still be, but getting the base and getting those traditional audiences that may not turn out to show up at the polls this year will be important. If you look back at the last two elections and the small margins in states like Georgia and Arizona, very well they could once again be that tight this year. And so any number of votes, just a few thousand votes, could make all the difference.
Rob Bluey, we appreciate you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.